I think Riba is very clear. Any increase demanded on money given when you get back the money as a loan, that is Riba. We don't have to go into other forms because these are not the days of barter when you give wheat and get wheat back. Very few people are doing that. So it is money against money. You give some money in the present and you get back some money in the future. And you want to get more money than you gave. That is riba, that is prohibited. And the reason is that the purposes for which money can be used in between is not sure to produce an increase. Now, money is either used for producing and selling and doing some profitable business. In that case, it can be that you get to lose. So why should you be made to pay more? And sometimes you get much more than anybody could expect, huge profit. So why should you give only a very small share, the fixed rate of interest? A fairer view is that if and when it increases, you get a fair share of increase. And if it fails to increase, you be given less. If you want neither the profit nor the loss, of course, lend and you will be given back what you lend. If the money given in present and to be returned in future is for consumption, that's a different story. There are two types of consumption. One is for durable goods, house, car, refrigerator. We look it as sort of a productive thing because when you have a car, you have a refrigerator, you have a house, you are more efficient. You can earn more. So the idea of sharing that more with the financier is quite okay. But here again, there are other ways to doing so. The famous murabaha, in which I tell you, okay, you want a car, you don't have money to buy it, I will buy it for you, but I will sell it on installment at a higher price. We have arguments that it is fairer than giving you a loan. And the other sort of consumption is for food, drink, clothing, very essentials. Now, Islam does not approve of meeting this kind of financial need with the demand for increased return. It should be done as a courtesy, as a help, as a care. Now, why should it be done? This is a question asked now. But if you look at the human society, it's built that way, that we have to share, we have to care, otherwise nobody can survive. It's not a world in which there are only able-bodied people, some are invalid people, not a world of all healthy people, some are weak and diseased people. It's a word in which there is a phase of a person being a child, he can't look after. There is a phase of very old age. So all the nature of human life requires that some people have to care for some other people. So meeting this side of consumption needs, somebody doesn't have enough to eat, should be done either as a charity, or if you think that he can be in a position to give back, as a courtesy, take it and give me back when you are. If individual to individual arrangements do not suffice, we have societal arrangements like zakat, like other welfare. So to come back to your question, this is riba, very simple. Exchange of present money against future money with an increase. This is prohibited. Time is very valuable, but the environment does not attach a certain predetermined value with time. Time brings opportunities. Sometimes we are able to make those opportunities make us richer. Sometimes we fail. And failure does not necessarily come because I was incompetent. Changes outside beyond my control. It's difficult. I will never say that time has no value, but I will say the value of time can be realized only by taking some risk, meeting some uncertainty. So the returns related to time should also be of that nature. You cannot have a predetermined, fixed per unit value of time. You see, we have a term in Arabic, wakala, agency. It's always open to you if you have some money to ask X, Y, or Z, manage this money, manage its investment. I will give you these fees. Nothing to do with the result of that management. The man may report huge profits to you, the man may report nothing, even losses. But his fees will be intact because basically what you are doing, you are trusting his capacities, his experience, his knowledge of the world, and thereby you are saying we will give you this much monthly, and he is supposed to be trying his best. If you don't trust him, you can always cancel the contract. So that's okay. But here what the financial intermediary does, which is what a bank is to conventional bank mobilize savings as loans given to bank. Use savings of other people to give loans to other people. Get a 12% rate from them, give a 6% interest to them, 6% spread to meet costs and some extra profit for those who organize this bank. This is what we object to. We say these two relations of an intermediary should be based on sharing. Of course, those who take your money, they can do all sorts of business, directly, indirectly. And there comes murabaha and leasing and all those things. But basically an intermediary, pure intermediary, the ideal pure intermediary is what in our fiqh books are termed al-mudarib judarib. You take on sharing basis, you give on sharing basis. You are not doing business. A pure financial intermediary in Islamic framework also will not be doing business himself or herself, just passing on to others who will do the business. That is fairer than the current arrangement. Of course, you see, the Islamic system is like you asking, do tractors have a place in Islamic agriculture, or does Concorde have a place in Islamic aviation? You see, Islam gives us basic guidelines which relate mostly to our spiritual and moral life. And since economics, finance, business, they involve morality, there Islam comes in. But when it comes a matter of pure means, it's okay to travel from here to Egypt. How to travel? It's up to you. There was a time you had to travel by ship. Now you can fly. There may be other times. So that way Islam has nothing to say or not to say. It's a matter of human convenience, and really money is a matter of convenience. Fortunately, we have many sayings from old days which underline this fact that money is purely a matter of convenience. People were fully Islamic even when they had no money. Only barter. We cannot say that, look, they didn't have a medium of exchange, they were So you can say they were inefficient, but you cannot say they were Islamic or un-Islamic. Now people are dealing even without paper money. You don't need paper money. You have some plastic cards, and there are entries into the, not even on a paper register. There are electronic entries, and that's money. So all this is acceptable. Now some of them may have side effects, like air travel. Air travel gives you jet lag. That's for you to handle. If you are not happy with side effects, don't do it. If use of paper money is having some side effects, take care of that. But Islam has not come to tell you how to take care. And it has not come to tell you avoid doing this because of this side effect. Like so many other things, it is for us to decide. I'm not saying we must have paper money. I'm only saying this issue should not be, this ball should not be thrown back into the court of Islam. It's a matter of means, and we have people like Ibn Taymiyyah and other people having said that it's a matter of convenience. Some people did say, like Ghazali, he said that gold and silver has been created for this purpose. It's not, he is not saying that God has mandated that only gold and silver should be used as money. He said what he was observing. In their days, these were the monies accepted in the society, so they put it like that way. There can be only one system, and that is human system. If you come to daily life, like agriculture, like business, like economy, there cannot be many systems. Now, in that one system, there are possibilities of moral approach, accepting guidance from divine sources, or not doing so. Islam is distinguished by this, that we have divine guidance, we have a moral framework, but when we come to the market, it's the same market. When we come to the growing our food from the earth, it is the same earth. So there cannot be many systems by definition. And if some people have in mind this accident of history, that Muslims are concentrated in certain parts of the world, so they should organize everything, including their markets and banking, in those parts of the world only Islamically, they are living under an illusion, because now the old days have gone. Even though people live in large numbers, they really live in the same world. They are so much interacting with one another. So I will say that considering our financial and views related to banking, our aspiration is to put to humanity ways of doing what they want to do in a better way in the sense of justice and fairness, also in being more efficient and being more stable, as we have been arguing. So it is for all, good for everybody. We try to do it for our people because they listen to us, but we know that only Muslims cannot have a separate system because the world is so interacting. So really our effort should be to make it a system of everybody. We should not be isolationist, and the fact that some Muslim countries, Iran and Pakistan and others, that's natural, because most of the people were convinced, so they started doing this. But it is not a result of the desire to have a separate world of ours. I think a middle realistic path is more advisable, because one individual may undergo a lot of hardship to stick to a very strict interpretation of what is allowable in such conditions. But the whole community cannot be subjected to this hardship, because then it becomes counterproductive. All your energies are spent in avoiding this, avoiding that, and you can't make any headway. When we realize more and more how important the Muslim community in USA is, look at whatever is happening elsewhere with its origin in this country. Now, those who fortunately are with full rights in this country, citizens, they have a great role to play. They may even prohibit other people's coming in, but they can't dispose of these people. So they have a lot to do, and to do a lot, you have to have resources. You have to have a press, you have to have platform, you have your own colleges, you have to have your research centers, and we have nothing of this. So if all our energies are spent in raising cash to buy a car and not investing it because everywhere there is shubhatul riba, then we are finished. Now I remember a fatwa, not of one individual, because individual people have not that much weight, by the Fiqh Council of Europe. I think it came in 1999. I read it when I was in Jeddah, and I have it I saved it in my computer. It said that people in US and other similar countries, they should be allowed to buy houses on mortgage, conventional mortgage, if they cannot find an institution like MSI, like LARIBA, like other one group in Canada, one in New York. And there are very few. They can hardly meet needs of dozens or hundreds of people, and this need is for millions of people. So they should be allowed. And they gave 3-4 arguments. One argument was necessity, that when some haja is general, it becomes zarura, it becomes of a level of what fuqaha call zarura, which makes not permitted things permitted. Then they gave the argument of the need for Muslim community to be strong. And it's a very weak position not to be having your own house, somebody in a position to evict you and check you out of the locality. How can those people exercise any weight in the society? So I go by that opinion. There are priorities, there are higher things, and higher things allow you to ignore lower things. These things which relate to personal, what is permitted, what is not permitted, these are lower in relation to the strength of the ummah and protecting the maslahah of the ummah. I think Islamic banking and finance needs a lot of fundamental research. Let me first explain what do I mean by fundamental research. I distinguish it from research and development. Research and development is directly related to your operations. You feel some difficulty, you ask your research department to find a solution. But fundamental research relates to your basic concepts, and it is the feeder for your R&D. Now, I give you an example. Risk management. If you go to fiqh, the type of risk with which they were familiar in 2nd to 4th century when the fiqh was compiled was very simple type of risk, for the simple reason that the periods of production were small. Now, if you take an order for supplying a Boeing aircraft, you have to have a several years period for assembling that craft. And in taking that order and signing that contract, you have to take into consideration what may change over the next 5 years. then their geography was also small. Here, the whole world is one location. You are dealing with a person in Korea, another person in Japan, another person in the Caribbean, and all these persons are either your suppliers or your demanders, your technicians. Now you have to enter into contract with all of them. That also involves new types of risks. Over and above, we are in a fast changing world technologically. Look back at the 2nd to 4th century. What technology changed? There was only agriculture. It remained almost the same in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century of Islam. The same animal power, the same instruments, the same crops. Here, even in agriculture, everything is changing. You have genetic engineering, don't know what is coming tomorrow. And this applies to other industries, services. So, because of time, changing technology, the world becoming one, the element of risk has increased and the types of risk have increased. Imagine that word, you had gold and silver. Now you have 200 currencies. And sometimes the production of one thing requires dealing with 5, 10, 12 currency areas. You have to have this raw material from there, that technician from there, you have to supply it to there, and the foreign exchange rate may change. So now to deal with these risks Islamically, we go back to fiqh. We find very simple examples. It's very difficult to jump from there to here. So what you have to do, you have to go back to the sources to which those fuqaha went in 2nd, 3rd, 4th century. After all, when they said this is gharar and this is not gharar, they were going back to what the Prophet did or said, or we have to do the same for us. We cannot derive from the second-hand laws, that is fiqh. We have to go back to the first-hand thing, that is the Quran and the text of the Sunnah. Now, unfortunately, nobody does this because the second thing is safe, secure. The rules are clearly laid down. The first thing may result in different opinions because there the dominant thing will be maslaha, maqasid al-sharia, what is more efficient, and in this my evaluation and some other colleagues' evaluation will be different. So people are afraid. Now it reminds me of what must have been going on during the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century of Islam. You remember there were so many fuqaha, so many mazahib fiqhiyya, many of them then nobody even knows the name. Even then more than half a dozen were there. Only after a long time 4 or 5 schools remained. Now this period of 200 years, there were many opinions, and there was, the fiqh was an unregulated industry. The rulers were not in a position to regulate who sits in what mosque and teaches what and gives what fatwa. These people were stronger than the rulers. So we have to tolerate different fatwa, different rules. We should not be afraid. There is a way in this world in which the more solid arguments, the more beneficial fatwa, the more relevant things will stay, and other opinions will just die out. So my submission is Islamic banking and finance needs fundamental research. And the second thing that it needs is we have to make it more and more relevant to the humanity in general. We stop thinking about it as a Muslim industry. By the Muslims, for the Muslims. No. It may be by the Muslims, but it is for everyone. And the more it is for everyone, the more it will be beneficial to Muslims. Now, how to make it relevant for others? By dealing with their problems, not by dealing with our problems. Till now we have been dealing with Muslim people's problem. How can a Muslim buy a house in the United States? How can a Muslim country becomes stronger. No. People at large are facing certain problems. They are worried about this game. Sometimes something has a value of 100, the other day it has a value of 1, and their savings are gone. And all these things which are happening, not only to individuals, to countries like Argentina today and Malaysia yesterday and Mexico in between. So if we have something which we think, and we do think, could save humanity from some of these ills, not all of these ills, we should be in a position to tell them. And at least, if not by demonstrating it in a country, at least by academically presenting it, I think it is being done. It needs to be more penetrating. We have not reached the universities. Our audience is mostly Muslim. So these are the things to look for. Of course, because without ijtihad you can't, in this field especially, you can't arrive anywhere. In this field especially. This is a very tricky field and a very fast changing field. It's one thing to aspire to find ways of how to finance a house and these smaller things. It is an entirely different thing to aspire for having your entire economic and financial structure of a country run according to Sharia. For that you have to handle these bigger issues.